Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode, episode number 8 today for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix at Baku. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Monaco Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one over the weekend. You may have missed it if you were at Silverstone like myself, but it was a very chaotic weekend. We had a wet qualifying, which was terrifying for the first time being at the Principality, and then quite a hectic lap 1, and then it was kind of usual business with Monaco, doing the business, getting track position, and we scored some decent points. The same couldn't be said for our teammate, but that was unfortunate, but I was generally happy with that, and it was quite an important episode for the championship, for the AI fight between, Red Bull and Ferrari, and I guess you could kind of count Mercedes in there, because George Russell is still, in fact, actually ahead of Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship in 3rd place, and Verstappen, well, what could have been for him, if you watch the episode, you'll know he was probably going to be on to win the Grand Prix, whilst Leclerc was getting 0 points, and then his Red Bull powertrain gave up on him and gave Carlos Sainz his 2nd ever victory in Formula 1, of course, having won at the Miami Grand Prix just a couple of days ago in that episode. And so, well, it's just, Red Bull just keep on tripping up on themselves, even when they got an open goal of Leclerc scoring 0 points, because it was very hard to overtake, as you would expect around Monaco after a poor Saturday for him. And that's been the pattern this season so far. Ferrari dominant and consistent, and even when they have a trip up, you've got Sainz to pick up Leclerc's pieces, and Verstappen and Red Bull don't make the most of it. For us then, going into this episode, I was hoping for a triple whammy of upgrades coming in, including a major weight reduction upgrade, but as you can see, it has failed to come through. We've still got the other 2 pending, a drag reduction upgrade and an ERS upgrade. I hope those 2 at least come in, because if they both fail, then that's an absolute howler, because I thought this would be a really awesome jump up in performance. Thankfully though, those 2 upgrades do come in, and eventually we have enough R&D to repurchase the major weight reduction upgrade, but that will now come in after both the next 2 races, so this one and Canada. So that's a major blow to our climb up in the R&D chart. Weight reduction would have helped so much around Azerbaijan and Canada. I guess, it will still help obviously for the remainder of the season, but it would have been so nice to have that coupling in with the drag reduction update and the ERS, because I don't think the drag reduction and the ERS will make as much of a massive impact without the weight reduction adding in as well, because clearly still, as we saw in race like Miami, we're just lacking that kind of lightweight car we need out the corners. But it is how it is in this My Team Career Mode journey. We're going to have ups and downs, we're going to have some R&D failures, and that's all part of the challenge. So we now head into the Azerbaijan race weekend with a Pirelli hot lap. This one though is a bit of a different one. We've actually got a rival duel race versus a random AI driver in the similar McLaren here. So basically, you've got to just try and beat them in 3 different rounds. The first round, you start fully ahead of them. The second one, you're just about side by side. And then the third round, they start ahead of you. So it's meant to be kind of increasingly difficult as you go on through those rounds. The first one, pretty okay. We got a good launch. We blocked him off through the slingshot right-hander. A little bit slower pace through that left and right, as we will be in a moment in the F1 cars, but we get the first win under our belt, and I'm hoping we can try and get all 3 wins, as you can see on the top right there, to maximize the acclaim level and the money we're going to get. So now second run, second race, second duel, I guess. Bit of wheel spin off the line, having to cover him off into the first turn that we're met with there, as we were pretty much side by side. A little bit wide there, you can see he's all in the mirrors. He goes to the left, we block him off, bit cheeky, but he backs out of it then, and it's going to be a home run stretch then to the line. He was pretty close though to me, so I was quite impressed actually that he gave me a good run for the money here in the second race, and it was just a couple of tenths in there. And then the third one, well, this was a bit annoying because I got a great start. I launched it down the inside, and then I was probably a bit too kind to him. I didn't want to make contact with him in this race. I didn't know if that was going to be something that would be advisable or whatever, so I kind of went down 1 gear to second. I should have probably kept us into first, sorry. I should have kept it in second through that corner, because that allowed him just to stay ahead then on the exit, and then it was impossible to catch him because he was actually so good through that right-hander. Both attempts before this, the only reason I stayed ahead was because I blocked him off, so he actually ended up winning won the third race. So for the first time, I didn't actually get the gold in the Pirelli Hot Lap. So it just shows, you know, yeah, here and there might be an actual proper challenge from these scenarios there. So we don't get the full acclaim and the cash, but we did get a little bit for what we've done and the participation there. And we get just over 400 R&D points there in the practice session. Drogovic getting just under 150 points, so showing the experience, you know, proving important, because remember when we had the experience lowered for him, he was only gaining a couple, you know, I think 70 points of R&D. So experience stat on the teammate does matter a lot for how much R&D you do earn. But yeah, going through the practice programs with the quick practice, getting some more boosters, hoping for some boosters on the chassis and the engine side of things. So we haven't got too many discounts on like things like the engine power and the ERS so far. Neither have we got it on the weight reduction, but I guess that's because we've bought so many of the upgrades already. And then we're delving into Q1 as the sun is coming down here on Azerbaijan. Quite a dark circuit, I must say. I don't know if the official timing is exactly correct. I feel like it's a little bit too dark for where we start with Q1 in real life, but I may just be remembering it wrong. But we're now going to see how the car performs with that drag reduction update, the ERS upgrade, but the lack of that weight reduction. So I'm hoping that's still a good step forward for us. It's still very close between, I would say, myself, our team, McLaren, AlphaTauri on the R&D chart, and Aston Martin. So I just don't, you can never really tell. It's very track dependent right now between us four teams. Williams lagging a little bit behind on the R&D chart, but that hasn't really mattered so far. Williams have been in the mix a few times, but as we come out then, Nicholas Latifi out of the session. I was curious to see how he went out, and whilst I did that, I saw a crash here from Lewis Hamilton. So Hamilton crashed it at the same time as Latifi retiring. Now, I thought they were connected, but no, clearly not, because Russell drives through Hamilton's ghosted car, because Hamilton's out this session. His session's done, so he's out of quali. Latifi's just retiring on his own accord, I think, or maybe he's collided with Hamilton, but I don't know, because unfortunately in qualifying, there's no way to look at a full replay. Unlike a race where you can save a replay and look all the way through, in qualifying, you can only look at the replays when you pause the game and just look at that small little replay, instant replay. So as I exited the pit lane and crossed the white line, I saw Latifi pop up, and I was curious. And then as I finished my second racing lap in qualifying, I was more curious because I thought, hang on, where's Drogovic in all this? He was last place, and then I was met with this screen. We've got 9 DNFs in Q1. It says Schumacher's finished the session, but I think that he's finished it because he's retired for whatever reason as well. So I think it's 9 DNFs underneath me. So even though I do set a good time up to P9 to get through into Q2, as there's a tyre literally there at turn 1. So I don't know what's gone on here, but we've got through into Q2, but we didn't even need to really bother too much because we've got, look at this, you've got the top 13 are through into Q2, but from Hamilton downwards, they're all greyed out because they're all unable to continue into Q2, because usually it would be greyed out from P17 downwards, but from P14 downwards they're all greyed out because a couple of people haven't set times, and a lot of people have DNF'd. All of them are DNF'd, even Schumacher included, and they're not going to start Q2, and I don't know what's gone on. Latifi looked like he retired on his own accord. Hamilton definitely crashed into the wall, but there was a tyre at turn 1, so there must have been a crash and an incident at turn 1, but it's so frustrating that I can't show you any of it because in qualifying, like I said, unless I am literally on track at the same time as it happened and I can click instant replay, I can't go back and look at a full replay of qualifying. So I don't know what went on with everyone. I don't know what's going on in Q2 either, because Sergio Perez is out this session, and his little heads-up display popping up to say he's out this session almost puts me in the wall because I got distracted by the notification on the top of my screen as we're looking to finish this first flying lap in Q2. But already, you know, we've already got a couple of people who didn't even start Q2. Now we've got Perez, who's out this session in Q2, so that's 10 DNFs of this entire qualifying day. We get up into P10, and we're pushed down to P11 then, because I think Vettel set a better time there. We've got Albon underneath me in P12, but that's it then. P13, Perez, he's out, and then no one else is below on the timer, because they didn't even start this session technically. So it's the first time I've ever seen this where cars are not even classified qualified in Q2 because they physically didn't start because of the DNF in Q1. So a very bizarre and bonkers qualifying session here around Azerbaijan, where I just need to improve by a couple of tenths and I can maybe try and get into Q3 for the very first time. And this is all thanks to all these DNFs. All I need to do is try and beat Vettel, and we could get through into the last part of qualifying for the first ever time in our My Team Career Mode series, and we will do that up into P10 as we do out-qualify Sebastian Vettel just about, but obviously I got a massive helping hand by Perez, and then whoever was going to be below him in, Q1, we've had X amount of 10 DNFs, so, you got to think a couple of those cars probably would have out-qualified me and pushed me out of the top 10, but because they're all DNF'd, because they didn't start, that helped me. That's helped me elevate me into Q3 for the very first time. The championship rivals, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, they're all through into the top 10 shootout, but it's chaos down below with the likes of Hamilton, my teammate, both the McLarens, Perez, so many people out early in qualifying. We're right now, if you're counting, we're up to a total, I think, of 10 DNFs. And this is just in qualifying, so I don't even know what's going to happen now in this race. Is there some kind of weird coding with the AI's lines that they're all hitting the walls and they're crashing out of qualifying whilst they're on their fast laps? I don't know, because I've not been able to ride on board with them, because we can't do that with QUALI, because, as I said, we have to be on track and you have to look at instant replay. So we start Q3 then. The sun has really come down, so I think they've very much got the official time of day a bit wrong here, because it's definitely not this pitch black, and the sun is not set this low, I don't think, in Q3 in real life. But we've only got one flying lap here, because I used all my soft tyres to get through into Q2 and then into Q3, so we've got one fresh set to use, so we've waited till the end of this session to see what we can do. Qualifying has ended, the checkered flag's fallen. Leclerc has only qualified P6, it would seem, behind Verstappen, who only qualified P5 then, so a bit of a disaster for those two rivals. Alonso is out of the session, and we go across the line. Alonso's not even out, he's disqualified apparently, and we get through into P9. Everyone set slower times than they did in Q2 and Q1, I think, because I think with the sun setting and the daytime being even later in the day, I think the track temps plummeted a little bit and the grip was a little bit harder, because even I was finding a bit more understeer around that one and only flying lap. P9 though, I mean, I'll take it because we're in the top 10 anyway. This is the highest grid slot we've had in the entire series so far, and if you add in Fernando Alonso's DSQ, that's 10 DNFs and a DSQ, or 11 people out of qualifying, because they're crashed or for whatever reason. So already chaos in Baku, and it's only Saturday. Let's go to the race. We're in the top 10. This could be a really exciting race.
Good afternoon and welcome from Baku. This was the arena, if you think back to 2017, of one of the most eventful races of modern history, with controversy behind the safety car, last-second overtakes, and a historic podium for Williams and Lance Stroll. Let's find out what lies in store for us this year. It's time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The Baku city circuit measures roughly 6 kilometers and is made up of 20 corners and 2 DRS zones. The circuit winds around the narrow city, through the old town, and even brushes against the city's medieval walls. However, as beautiful as the setting is, this track is also a ferocious technical challenge, where the smallest of mistakes could lead to catastrophic consequence for any one of our drivers. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Gasly, Max Verstappen and Leclerc, Ocon, Zhou, the owner driver and Fernando Alonso, Vettel, Albon, Sergio Perez and Hamilton, Ricciardo, Stroll, Lando Norris and Nicholas Latifi, Mick Schumacher, Magnussen, Tsunoda and Felipe Drugovich. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And with me as usual is Anthony Davidson. We should talk about Alfa Romeo. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So for the first time then, within the top 10 we're going to be starting this race. We can see the likes of Leclerc ahead of us. I mean, to be fair, we beat Leclerc in qualifying last time out, so that's not an unfamiliar sight to be near the Ferrari on the grid. But to be this far up is really quite something. We have maybe a great chance to score a buttload of points, especially if there's, if there's similar amount of chaos in the race than there was quali. Well, I mean, either way, it's going to be quite an entertaining episode. There's no saying that we couldn't be involved in that though, so we need to be careful of that. And just like Julian Palmer once said, you need to be a bit alert around street circuits. But we're going to try and park up and angle this left, because I want to try, if we can get a good launch, jump Guan Yu Zhou, in theory, this is my plan, my game plan, jump the Alfa Romeo and get to the inside of Ocon for turn 1. So we've angled the car slightly left. We're inside the top 10 for the first time, starting an F1 race in this My Team career mode. As the back of the grid forms up, we're going now to 5 red lights, to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Lights out, and away we go. And the Alfa Romeo is slow, Ocon slow as well, and we can get to the inside, and the plan has worked perfectly because we've got 2 overtakes into turn 1 up into P7. That plan worked flawlessly. Leclerc now dive bombing 1, 2, 3 cars as he goes down the inside of Gasly as well to try and get P3 early doors in this race. Verstappen with a slow one. Verstappen was ahead of Leclerc on the grid. This is the opposite of what he needed. He needed to keep Leclerc behind to try and once again score more points than him today. And again, he's bottled it. I don't know, for whatever reason, he just can't get it together. And Leclerc has got the momentum. He's up into P4 already. Meanwhile, you've got his teammate Sainz still leading the way from George Russell, I might add, in second place, who had a fantastic qualifying yesterday. He's on the front row and he's showing, like in real life, he's really working that Mercedes car well, especially versus his AI teammate Hamilton, who's had a few howlers in Saturdays in this series, and he had another one this race weekend crashing out there, and he's down in P14 behind Sergio Perez. But a lot of people had howlers. Norris down in P21, both McLarens knocked out. My teammate, I think he started from last place unless other people had engine penalties, but he's now up into P18, so he's doing very well. Meanwhile, we're trying to fend off the Alfa Romeo. Guan Yu Zhou round the outside as we go over the bump. The Alfa Romeo is able to skip round the outside. That Alfa, I've said it before, is really a very, very good car. I mean, how many times have we seen Bottas, holding a very solid P4? He's got a podium this season even in the Alfa Romeo, the Flying Finn has. So the Alfa has turned into a great race car, it would seem, in this alternate F1 universe where they're able to, fight the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes, it would seem, as now we're getting done on the straight, and it's giving me the fear. It's giving me the same sort of feeling as Miami, as Ocon just flies past us. I'm unable to do much. We haven't deployed too much ERS, but it's because, we've got a long race to go. I can't just afford to dump the ERS just to try and defend Ocon for 1 lap or 2 laps and then ultimately run out of ERS later in the race. So that's why I didn't bother fighting too much with ERS there against Esteban, because, I've got to play the long game for the whole race. But this is Leclerc's start then, just to show you a replay. Got Verstappen into turn 1, then the Alfa, tried to get Gasly, bit of tyre banging, Pierre holds it through. So actually, we've got to mention him as well. Stonking effort in quali by the Frenchman, the AlphaTauri. At the moment, he's running in P3 in an AlphaTauri. Really good stuff for him. But back to our POV then, we were talking about ERS and saving enough for later in the race. It all didn't matter because our engineer pops up and we've got an issue with it.
Looks like we're experiencing an ERS software glitch. Good news, it looks like the fault's been fixed. Let's go.
So the ERS is stuck permanently right now on overtake, even though my engineer just said, the audio said it's fine now. It's that same glitch from last year's game where it says it's fine, but it's not. So it's just depleting all of my ERS, and so annoyingly, only when it gets to nearly 0% do I get this message.
The issue seems to be fixed, but we'll keep monitoring it from our end.
So now I can unclick it, but it didn't matter because my ERS was already now at 0%. And Albon, of all people, flies past in the Williams car. We block off Vettel a little bit, but then even he comes down the inside. We've got Alonso and Perez joining the party. If we're not careful, we could lose 4 positions here in one section. We go round the outside of Vettel, who compromised his own line into turn 1 to maintain P9. But the Williams is past us, behind us. Vettel and Perez are side by side. I think Perez dive-bombed Vettel, and now they're fighting along with Fernando Fernando Alonso. That gives me a bit of breathing room of 1.2 seconds there, but that's an absolute nightmare. So now we're chasing after a Williams car, but we've got hardly any ERS to work with. But meanwhile, on lap 4, at the same time as this problem, Leclerc is having problems. He's just clouted the wall. This was whilst I was having those issues, so this is kind of a replay back in time. Leclerc clouted the wall in the same place where Hamilton crashed in qualifying yesterday, and he's in now for an early pit stop. He's got end plate damage, just like in real life at the British Grand Prix. That right-hand side of his front wing, the end plate's off, and this time Ferrari do opt to change the front wing, unlike in real life, and so he's made that extra pit stop, and Sainz is in now on lap 5 onto 6, not for an issue, but because Sainz, very strangely, the pole man, Ferrari started him on the soft compound tyre, which is the two-stop strategy. So now, all of a sudden, George Russell is in the lead of this race. Gasly's in P2, Verstappen P3. You've got Leclerc way down in P21 with front wing damage having to change, and then Sainz is in P9 on a planned two-stop. So, obviously, Ferrari can't help Leclerc's mistake, but I don't know what Ferrari are doing with Carlos Sainz there with a two-stop, and it means now that Verstappen has a good chance to get up into P2 as he tries to get past the junior sister team, AlphaTauri, but Gasly puts up a fight. This is going to be a bit controversial in the Red Bull family pit wall as Gasly goes round the outside to fight Verstappen for the position. And it looks like they're pretty equally matched, it would seem, in straight line, because Gasly actually pulls through to pull alongside. They're going to be side by side now again into the next left-hander. Verstappen is ahead on the inside, but Gasly gets the exit. Verstappen's line's compromised, and now Gasly's got back ahead of him. Fully ahead of him. He's back into second place, and that's just playing into the hands of this man, George Russell. The gap is 6 seconds now to the Mercedes on the superior one-stop strategy. Sainz, he's on a two-stop. He's in P9. Let's see how his progress is. He's catching up to me now on lap 8 already. That's how much pace he's got, at least in terms of I've not made my pit stop, and he's already caught up to us, having made one full one already. But I just don't think versus the Merc and the Red Bull, they have that much overspeed to make a two-stop work. Over people like me, sure, as he overtakes me and into turn 1, he locks up though! He locks up and we get the position back! It's a massive mistake from Sainz, and the opposite of what he needs. He needs to be flying through cars like me on a two-stop to try have any chance of battling Verstappen and Russell for the podium positions, but he makes a big mistake. I was letting him by pretty much. I didn't want to fight that, but I said thank you very much and went back down the inside as he went nearly straight on. Gasly, though, he's in! Oh, no, Gasly's in for an early stop onto hard tyres because he probably got damage, I guess that means. Fighting Verstappen, he must have made a bit of contact with the sim damage, and so he's coming for an earlier pit stop than he would have liked onto the hard compound. But to be fair, because he's still on the one stop, that won't be horrendous. He's only lost maybe a couple of seconds with the front wing change. Sainz, meanwhile, finally overtakes us on that previous lap, and lap 11, he's overtaken Albon, and he closed up to the Williams car in the pit lane entry for our one and only stop this afternoon. But yeah, both Ferraris then on a two-stop. Leclerc with a forced two-stop because of that front wing change, and then Sainz with a planned two-stop. I'm still just so puzzled by it, but there we go. So I think now, to be honest, the way I see it, I think this race win fight is between Russell and Verstappen, which is very odd to say, considering how dominant Ferrari have been in this alternate F1 universe of ours on F1 22 My Team Career Mode. But for us then, we're out on hard tyres, very, very horrendous hard tyres, I must say, around Baku. They take so long to warm up and light up, and so the first couple of laps out of the pit lane is pain in the My Team car. It really is. A lot of understeer. I actually lose time to Albon in a Williams car, who, you know, that Williams team on paper is below us in the R&D chart. I wouldn't mind as much if it was, Aston, McLaren or Alpha, because they're very close to us in the R&D chart, but we should be beating the Williams, and Albon is actually pulling away from us right now, and we're falling away into the clutches of Fernando Alonso because this My Team car just does not not like the hard tyres around here, and it's not lighting them up. Alonso goes, oh, Alonso's got it crossed up, and he's hit the wall, and he's broken off his front wing, and he's going slow, and that may be a full-ass retirement for Fernando Alonso, as the full safety car is deployed because of the debris he's caused, but Alonso pulls up and has to retire the car with that, so maybe some internal damage with that, but it looked like he almost went for a half move on me, which was never going to work because I was so far ahead of him, and then he got it all crossed up and hit the wall there, so very, very odd, and he's caused a full safety car, so maybe this now might give Sainz half a chance of attacking Verstappen and Russell on fresher hard tyres, because surely he's pit now under this safety car for that free pit stop. Meanwhile, back in our world, we've got a very interesting graphical glitch going on here. So usually, obviously, you have to drive under the delta time, and then once the game tells you to catch the safety car, you don't have the delta anymore. I've got this weird bug now for the last lap or two where it's switching between catch the safety car or stay under your delta, and it's giving that not just to me but every car. So you can see here I've caught up to Albon, but as a pair, we've not caught up to Gasly. Gasly's still 6.8 seconds ahead of us. Perez and Hamilton, they're 10 seconds behind me. So everyone, I think every driver is being sent this glitch message between catch the safety car or stay under the delta time, and it's meaning that unlike myself, who, you know, I can just drive through it because I'm not getting penalised for it because the delta time is going and coming, the AI, they're getting kind of confused by this, and they're slowing down to still match this delta time that keeps popping up. But in theory, they should all be bunching up. We should all be catching the safety car. So it basically means by the time we get on to the race restart, we're all going to be spread out. And so lap 18, finally, the glitch stops. But that's because the safety car's coming in. But Perez is 8 seconds behind me. We're 6.4 seconds behind Gasly. So everyone's spread out in the same time gaps, effectively, that we started with before the safety car came out. And we're going to be on the restart. So this is going to play into the hands of Russell, into Verstappen, to be ahead, a lot further ahead of Sainz than Sainz would have hoped so. And it plays into my hands a little bit because I've caught up to Albon. And I've also got a bit of a buffer and a gap to Perez and Hamilton, although to be fair, they're already 4 seconds behind me because they did close up as we went green. But now as we go on to lap 19 then, the last phase, the last third of this Grand Prix, we are still well and truly fighting a Williams car, and we're really having to push hard because he's legitimately quite quick around here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where the pace has come from for the Williams and where ours has gone, but we're having to really push hard to try and close up to him. I daren't use too much ERS as well because I'm scared of being mugged off then on the next straight if we use too much to overtake him first and foremost. But even with no deployment, we go round the outside, we're able to get him under braking, but then on the exit, I don't want to use ERS here, but that allows Albon to dive down the inside. We go for the switchback move. I think we can get him now on the second straight. The problem is, my thinking is if I overtake him straight away, he's just going to get me on the next straight. So I need to play around with him a little bit and try and overtake him pretty much now, if I can, into the next left-hander. So here we go for the move. It's a late one. We're so close to the wall, and we're a bit too close because we have to compromise our own line. And now, oh my God, we nearly span it because I deployed the ERS in the worst position ever, and I nearly completely span and probably DNF'd my own race there, as now Perez is down the inside. He's gone for the dive. We go and keep our racing line just to try and hold him off. And now he's under attack from Hamilton. So in the last 5 laps of this Grand Prix, I'm trying to overtake Albon for P8. But then you've got Hamilton, Perez, and Leclerc now, of all people, closing up, trying to attack me. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, in a very different world, Russell dominating this race. Dominating. Nearly 12 seconds ahead of Verstappen in the Mercedes car. Could this be the first ever race victory for George Russell's career in Baku? Verstappen second, and not for too long. It's going to be now Sainz in third because Bottas, he was running really well in the podium position, but eventually the Ferrari is too quick. He's up into P3, but Sainz doesn't have enough time to close up to Verstappen, or definitely not to Russell, so I think Sainz will have to accept third place with a 2-stop strategy. Again, Bottas, ever consistent, P4, and that quite amazing Alpha of his. Meanwhile, for us, Again, still chasing after Albon. This time we have DRS. We've not got too much ERS to play around with because we've deployed quite a lot to try and catch up to him, because we did get held up by Perez, remember, on the outside. Now, this time, we actually get the move completed on the exit, because Albon has a really poor exit, and actually now he's being attacked by Hamilton. Hamilton cleanly round the outside with a superb move to get up into P9, and now Albon is going to get swallowed up by Perez and maybe Leclerc as well, as the Red Bull is on the outside. Albon tight on the line. The Red Bull has way better grip on the outside, more downforce, and you can see the difference in car performance there, as Albon is very swiftly pushed down to P11. But this is the problem now. I've overtaken Albon, but now I'm just going to have the same thing as Hamilton flies by, and he's got DRS. I can't even fight him too much. I've only got 11% of ERS, and Perez now is going to fly by. We're going to give him a bit of a fight because we can, because we're entering turn 1, but I had no chance of fighting Hamilton because there was too much straight to go. And I don't want to dump all my ERS, because then I really would be a sitting duck to even Leclerc and then Albon again, basically at the end of the race. So we're trying our best to be clever about it. We can still maybe get 2 points here. Hamilton, he's shot off like a rocket ship. And now lap 24! Oh my God! Sergio Perez! He's gone for the absolute kamikaze dive bomb, and he's broken his front wing. My life flashed before my eyes there. That could have been a DNF. If I turned in any earlier, that would have definitely been a DNF for me, and that would have been a catastrophic crash between myself and Perez, as we now go round the outside of Albon on lap 25 to re-overtake him, because I got so, I had to lift off so much to avoid Perez that Leclerc and Albon overtook me. We re-overtake Albon. Leclerc's obviously shot off now because he's in a quicker car, and there was too much time on the table there, unfortunately. So Perez has unfortunately demoted us down to P10, but we've at least going to get maybe 1 championship point through this. But through all of this, the biggest story of the day, I guess, is George Russell is going to go on to win his first ever Formula 1 race in this alternate F1 universe of ours, in the Mercedes car at Baku. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix is George Russell's and Mercedes, their first victory of the season. Wow, that is quite something. What a race for them. Verstappen second, Sainz third, and now Albon on the last lap. Down the inside, he does what Perez does. He's hit the wall. I've nearly hit the wall. And Albon's going to finish the race with half a front wing, but it's going to mean we can overtake him, surely. Right now, he's got P10, but here we come. We've got plenty of ERS because I on purpose saved enough for this last straight, because I knew if I was in Albon's position now, he would overtake me with DRS and his ERS. So we had to be behind him, playing a bit of chess on the Formula 1 stage. DRS open for us, ERS, and across the line, we'll get P10 just about. But I can see maybe why now there were so many DNFs in quali, because if those were the racing lines the AO were taking sometimes in quali, they were definitely just all hitting the wall and DNFing that way. But of all people, Drogovic gets driver of the day somehow, even though I got P10 out and all that madness.
It's never an easy race here in Azerbaijan. There's drama around every corner, but they've come through to take a brilliant victory here today. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot. A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
The Silver Arrows win again in Formula 1, and it's in the hands of George Russell. What a victory for him. Deserved. He's been on top of that car so far in the game in this career series of ours. Comes second place Verstappen and then Sainz. I mean, Ferrari, Sainz could have easily won that race. He had Russell covered on pace, but he started on softs. I just don't know. I still don't know why. There's been we had a very bulletproof Ferrari in the first 4 or 5 episodes of this series. Now, kind of the classic Ferraris creeping back in. You've got Leclerc crashing, you got Ferrari doing some weird strategy with Sainz. It's starting to be a little bit wobbly now. They've still got a 1-2 in the championship and still the lead in the constructors, but if they carry on like this, we might actually have a proper championship fight now brewing. not only with Ferrari versus Red Bull, dare I say even with Mercedes, with George Russell spearheading the charge, because he's now 24 points behind Leclerc in the championship. Sainz is only 10, so we're definitely getting Sainz versus Leclerc, I would say. But Russell, if he keeps this up, he could get into there. And, Verstappen, he's a bit further back, but, if the Red Bull can actually find some performance that I know Verstappen's AI should be able to get and see through, there's no reason why it can't be a four-way fight there, maybe between both Ferraris, the Dutchman and the Brit. But Mercedes are ahead and second to Red Bull. So really, actually, it's not even Ferrari versus Red Bull right now. It's Ferrari versus Mercedes, actually. Let's not be insulting to the Silver Arrows. It is Ferrari versus Mercedes right now as it stands. But for us, after all that chaos, 1 point, it was still a very, very entertaining race. A bit of a weird one to be fighting the Williams so hard, but it happens sometimes because others just weren't there to take the fight to us, and myself and Albon had the pace to keep up and fight for that 1 point at least. Guys, if you have enjoyed the episode though, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.